Om Sam Saraswati Namaha. Namaste. Namaste, everyone. This evening we're going to begin on page 65 with chapter 3. With the Brahmo devotees. It's October 1882 in Calcutta. This is the first discussion. It was Saturday, the second day of the dark fortnight in the month of Ashwin, and a religious festival was in progress at the garden estate of Benmadapal, situated on the bank of the Ganga about 3 miles north of Calcutta. And there was a monk who lived in this garden, and twice a year he would hold a festival, once in the autumn and once again in the spring. The two Navaratris, Chaitra in the spring and Ashwin in the fall. Every year he used to invite many people from the nearby villages surrounding Calcutta, as well as from greater Calcutta. On this day, the Brahmo leader Shivanath and a number of his followers from Calcutta were to attend the festival. The Brahmo Samaj used to congregate regularly in this garden, and all of its members loved Sri Ramakrishna very much. It was strange that the devotees of the Samaj, who had vowed to worship only the transcendental, the formless aspect of God, had such faith and devotion to Sri Ramakrishna, the worshipper of Kali. On the previous Friday, the Brahmo members had experienced great bliss in his company, and Keshav Sen, a prominent leader of the Samaj, had been there as well. On this day, Shivanath and the Brahmo members had come up the river to the beautiful garden by steamer. Mohan, both a Brahmo member and a devotee of Ramakrishna, had told the Brahmos that this garden was a wonderful place for meditation and devotional practice. They began their devotions in the morning and continued throughout much of the day. Again, as evening fell, they joyfully conducted their worship in anticipation of the arrival of the great soul, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, who had been invited to the festival. All awaited the opportunity to view the blissful countenance of the Master. That afternoon, at about 4 o'clock, Ramakrishna sat in a carriage at Dakshineshwar with several devotees and began the 3-mile trip to the festival. Throughout the day, a great many people from the surrounding villages had been congregating in the garden. Some were seated under the vines and creepers to shade themselves from the hot sun. Near the entry to the garden was a shop that sold refreshments. Underneath the vines and creepers, everyone was speaking with great joy and delight. All the 4 quarters were filled with bliss. The blue skies of autumn were radiating their beauty, and as all awaited Ramakrishna's arrival. The birds were sitting in the trees under the clear skies, joined in the songs. There was an atmosphere of divinity, and all were thirsty for a sight of the man of God. Many devotees were thinking that soon they would hear the delightful conversations of Sri Ramakrishna. They would have the opportunity to listen to his enlightened discourse and his melodious songs, to witness his ecstatic union with God, and to view his divine dancing enraptured with the love of God. And then came the moment when the carriage arrived at the gate of the garden entrance. Ramakrishna's heart was filled with great delight to see the pure devotion of so many devotees of God. Everyone stood up with gestures of greeting and shouted, "He has come!" From all sides, people were straining to catch a glimpse of the Paramahamsa as he entered the garden. A seat on a raised platform under the tree in the center of the garden had been prepared for the master. In this place, there was a forest of people. All four sides were crowded with people in the houses of the neighborhood, surrounding the garden, in every veranda, on every balcony, and even on the rooftops. People were standing and looking down into the garden, trying to catch a glimpse of Sri Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna was full of joy and was laughing as he took his seat on the raised platform beneath the garden tree. All hearts were filled with bliss on having this opportunity to view the blissful countenance of Ramakrishna. It was just like the audience in a dance theater staring at the stage, anxiously waiting for the dancer to appear. Just previously, some had been laughing, some thinking about their personal affairs, and some conversing with their friends. Some had been eating refreshments and others chewing tobacco. But as soon as the master arrived, it became pin-drop silence. All were filled with bliss, and they had one pointed focus as they gazed at the blissful form of Sri Ramakrishna. The second discussion. Ramakrishna's sweet face was lit up with a smile as he lovingly directed his gaze toward Shivanath and the other devotees. Ramakrishna: "Oh, my beloved Shivanath, look at your devotees. They're sitting with you in such great bliss." Ramakrishna was filled with bliss himself. In fact, they all looked like they had just taken marijuana. When a pot smoker meets another pot smoker, they are both very, very happy, and they embrace each other with great delight. Shivanath and the other devotees began to laugh. Ramakrishna now describes the nature of worldly people. Ramakrishna: "Whoever won't take the name of God and has no devotion to God, please go sit over there." He gave another option. "Please stroll about a little and spend your time someplace else. You can have a look at the scenery and the buildings in the neighborhood." They all began to laugh. Any of the devotees who have come here with many desires in their mind won't listen to the word of God. Those who have many worldly thoughts in their minds won't be able to sit for very long to listen to me. Their minds will be wandering and they'll have to get up. Again and again, they hear voices whispering in their ears, "When will you go? When will we leave? Come on, it's time to go." The true devotees will say, "Wait a while, wait a while. We'll go in a little bit." Then, with great dissatisfaction, the others will say, "You listen to the words of this man. We'll go wait by the boat." If I were to tell worldly people to renounce all their attachments, they wouldn't listen to a word I say. Chaitanya would invite the worldly people by saying, "Come, drink fish soup, enjoy the embrace of a young woman, and chant the name of God." In greed, out of desire to enjoy the fish soup and the embrace, everyone would begin to sing the name of God. Then once they tasted the nectar of God's name, they would understand. Delicious taste of the fish soup is God's name. And when you sing the name of God until tears begin to flow from your eyes and you enter into ecstasy, falling on the ground, rolling in the dust, and embracing the earth, that is the embrace of the young woman. Then everything else seems unreal. In this way, Chaitanya used to inspire people to sing the name of God. Chaitanya would say, the name of God has such power you may not find the fruit quickly, but it will come without a doubt. There was a man who planted seeds in a window box. Afterward, there was an earthquake, and all the seeds fell out of the box onto the ground. Eventually, the trees grew up, and soon they blossomed and gave forth fruit. In the same way, if you sing the name of God, even in order to have fish soup and the embrace of your beloved, the seeds will sprout, blossom, and unfailingly produce fruit. Ramakrishna now talks about the nature of human beings and the three gunas. Ramakrishna. Devotion is of three kinds: sattva, rajas, and tamas. In this entire world of objects and relationships, these three qualities or gunas predominate. Therefore, devotion is also of three qualities. Do you know how sattva exists in worldly people? Imagine a broken down house. Nobody makes repairs. Pigeons are making a mess in the courtyard and no one cleans up the dirt. The whole place is neglected. The fixtures and furnishings have become old. Whatever clothing the family may have is sufficient, but the people are very peaceful. They are compassionate and have no attachment. They have no ill feeling toward anyone. That is the house of sattva. Do you know how rajas expresses itself? Such people have gold watch and chain. They have 2 or 3 rings on each hand. Their home is very expensive. They have a picture of Queen Anne on the wall and pictures of the princess and other important people. Their house is immaculately clean. There is not a spot anywhere. They always have plenty of fine food and wear fine, expensive clothing. The servants of the house are always dressed impeccably. This is the quality of rajas. Do you know the expressions of the quality of tamas in worldly people? They sleep a lot and express many unsavory desires. They are easily angered and very selfish. When people have sattvic devotion, they meditate in private. They meditate even underneath the mosquito net, while everyone else thinks they are asleep. Actually, in the night they're awake, and that's why they sleep late in the morning. They don't care too much for their bodies. If they get a little food, it's sufficient. They have no desire for delicacies. They have no desire for expensive clothing. They have simple furnishings and no wish for fine decor. Yet they feel no want. When devotion is rajasic, the devotee has a big tilak, a rudrakshmala with a little gold in between each of the beads. And when he performs his worship, he wears a very fancy silk cloth. The third discussion. Ramakrishna. Tamasic devotion is like a burning fire. These devotees make demands of God, just like a thief who steals all of the goods. They are like thieves who demand blessings from God. With great love and his beautiful melodic voice, Shrima began to sing. Oh, Ramakrishna began to sing Gaya Ganga.
Gaya Ganga? Gaya Ganga Prabhashanti Kashi Kanchi Ke Bajai Kali 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 Bole কিছু না মনেলা মদনের জাগ জাগ ব্রহ্মময়ীর রাঙ্গাপায় কালের নামেতে এত গুণ কে বা জানতে পারে তার দেবাদিদয় মহাদেব যার পঞ্চমুখে গুণ গায়।
Why should I go to Gaya and the Ganga River, Allahabad and Kashi Banaras? If you say the name Kali, Kali, Kali without count, the recitation of mantras comes back. What need is there of puja if a man repeats the name of Kali at the 3 times of prayer? They never find a time that is not the time of prayer. Compassionate behavior, giving alms and philanthropy doesn't enter into Madan's mind. In union with this beautiful mind, you feel the presence of the manifestation of the Supreme. The name of Kali has many qualities and contains so many divine moods that no one can understand them all. Even the Lord of all lords, Shiva, with all his 5 faces, cannot express all the qualities. Ramakrishna went into an ecstatic bhav just as if he were singing the song of the initiation of the divine fire.
আমি দুর্গা 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 বলে মা যদি মরি আমি দুর্গা 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 বলে মা যদি মরি আখিরের দিনে না তারো কেমনে আখিরের দিনে না তারো কেমনে জানা যাবে গো শঙ্করী।
In great ecstasy, in the attitude of complete communion with God, he began to sing again. If I die while singing the name Durga, 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 how can you keep me from becoming liberated, even though I may be unworthy? Ashambhav!
Impossible.
Ramakrishna suddenly, what? I have sung her name? What sin can touch me? I am her son. Her immortal qualities are mine by right to receive, and I have the right to be stubborn. When you give a spiritual turn to tamas, you can have the vision of God. Be forceful in your demands to God. She is not a stranger. She is your very own. The quality of tamas can be used for the welfare of others also. There are 3 kinds of doctors: a great doctor, a mediocre doctor, and the lowest kind of doctor. The doctor that comes, takes the pulse and says, please take this medicine, and then leaves, is the lowest kind of doctor. He doesn't even check to see if the patient took the medicine or not. The doctor who comes and explains to the patient in appropriate ways that he must take this medicine and says, how will you be cured if you don't take the medicine? You should take it without fail. I made it myself, so you please take it. This is the mediocre type of doctor. The doctor who, seeing that the patient did not take the medicine, even opens his mouth opens the mouth of the patient if necessary and forces the medicine down his throat, he is called a great doctor.
Now you cannot.
This is the doctor who employs the guna of tamas. This quality actually helps the patient. It does not injure the patient. In the same way, there are three kinds of teachers. One kind of teacher gives instructions about Dharma and doesn't check up on the disciples. That is the lowest kind of teacher. An average teacher repeatedly explains the subject for the welfare of the students so that they will understand his instructions and utilize them in their lives. He explains with many examples and with much love. That's the average teacher. But if a great teacher finds that his disciples are still not listening at all, he will even use force to compel them to follow the proper instructions. The fourth discussion. The formless infinite is beyond words. A devotee of the Brahma Samaj is God with form or without form. Ramakrishna, there is no end to the infinite. She is both without form and with form. For the gratification of devotees, she takes form. For gyanis, or those who consider this entire perceivable universe as a dream, she is without form. But devotees feel that their I is real and that the perceivable universe is also real. And therefore, for devotees, God is a personal God. The followers of non-dualistic Vedanta repeat, not this, not that. They meditate in this way. According to their understanding, the I is unreal. The world is false. It is all a dream. Such people believe only in the supreme divinity beyond relationship. But the essence of truth cannot be taught in words. How can I say she is like this, she is like that? The ocean of truth, of bliss, and consciousness is an ocean in which there are no waves or ripples. If you immerse yourself in devotion, the coldness of your devotion is, as it were, solidifies the water in places. In this way, the water takes on a form. When devotees come near to God, the formless becomes relative. Occasionally, she takes a personal form and remains embodied in that personal form. When the sun of wisdom rises, all the ice melts. And then you don't perceive God in a personal form at all. She melts back into the ocean of infinity. You can't have the vision of the form of the formless. You can't define that infinite ocean in words. Whatever you say, whatever words you use, it's not her. And at that time, I can't find the her, no matter how much I search. If you keep contemplating in this way, then you will find that the I is a concept with no reality. When you skin an onion from the outside, the first peeling is red. Then after that, there are many white layers. If you continue to skin the onion layer by layer, ultimately you come to nothing at all in the center. When you are searching for your own self, you search and search until you finally realize that you are nothing at all. Although we understand that the Supreme Divinity is the highest intelligence, who can speak of what form that highest intelligence takes? A doll made out of salt went to measure the depths of the ocean. When the doll immersed itself in the water, it completely dissolved. No one could find the doll because it had become one with the ocean. Now, who is left to give us the answer? When we attain to wisdom that is full, complete, and perfect, the human mind becomes silent. Then one's eye is like the salt doll that went into the ocean. It dissolved and merged with the oneness of the ocean and never came back. It never gave a report. In that state, no knowledge of distinction remains. Until all of your worldly tendencies have become complete, people make a bubbling dialogue with their egos. Ultimately, all becomes quiet. When you immerse a water pot in a pond, the bubbles of air go out, making a gurgling sound as water fills the pot. Then, when the pot is full, it doesn't make any more noise. As long as the pot is not full, it continues to gurgle as it discharges air bubbles. In olden times, people used to say, when a ship goes into the unknown seas, it may never come back. It may even fall off the edge. But I don't go there. I must relieve myself of the bubbles first. All began to laugh. You may discriminate 1,000 times, yet the I, who is the thinker, does not leave. For devotees, to regard me with devotion is a very good thing. To the devotees, I am the supreme divinity embodied in a human form, meaning that the supreme divinity beyond form has taken on qualities. When individuals take a form, they express through that form, and God listens to the prayers of a pure individual. Those who worship with form offer prayers to God with form. They are not Vedanta philosophers. They are not Gyanis, they are devotees. Whether you accept the divine with form or not, if you have the understanding that God is real, then your prayers will be heard. If you don't believe that God is real, then you're wasting your time. God is an individual who hears the prayers of all, and he creates, preserves, and transforms this entire perceivable universe. He is the embodiment of infinite power. By means of devotion, it is easy to attain God. The fifth discussion. God reveals herself either with or without form. One of the Brahma devotees, please explain, sir, is it possible to see God? And if it is possible, why can't I see God? Ramakrishna. Yes, certainly you can see God. You can see God with form, and you can see God beyond form. How can I explain it to you? You are a devotee of the Brahma Swaraj, and so believe in the formless. The Brahma devotee. Can you tell me the means of having the vision of the infinite? Ramakrishna. It will happen if you have complete sincerity, and if you can cry for God. How many people cry for their children? They cry for their wives and for their money. For those things, they cry a whole pot full of tears. But who cries for God? As long as a child is sucking on a pacifier or eating, the mother of the house continues to cook and do all the work of the house. But when the child throws the pacifier away and begins to cry loudly for its mother, then the mother puts down the pot of rice and runs to the child and puts the child on her lap. Brahma devotee, great sir, Mahashai, why are there so many different opinions about God? Some say he is with form. Some say he is without form. And if he has form, everyone has a different opinion of what that form is. Why is there so much confusion? Ramakrishna. When a devotee has a belief in a particular form of God and further develops a living relationship with that form, then there is no more confusion whatsoever. If you have a vision of God in any form, then He Himself explains it all to you. How will you learn your way around the city if you do not wander around the neighborhood? Listen to a story. A man was sitting at the foot of a tree when he happened to look up and he saw a remarkable animal sitting on a limb above. Later he told his friend, "There is a beautiful red animal sitting on a limb in that tree." His friend replied, "Oh, yes, I know that tree and I have also seen the animal. Well, why do you call it red? It is green." Soon others were also consulted. One person said it was purple, another said it was yellow, another said blue, and so on. So they all went to investigate, and as they drew near, they saw a man sitting at the foot of the tree. They approached and asked the man about the color of the animal. He said, "I live under this tree, and I know that animal very well. Whatever you say about it is perfectly true. Sometimes it's red and sometimes it's green, sometimes it's yellow and sometimes it's blue. It assumes many different colors. It is a chameleon. And sometimes it doesn't have any color at all. So I say that God is sometimes with form and sometimes without form. Those who continually contemplate the supreme divinity are able to know the true intrinsic nature of that divinity. Such a person knows that the divine expresses itself through various forms and attitudes. He is with form. He is beyond form. He who remains always at the foot of the tree knows that a chameleon has many colors and sometimes no color at all. Other people only debate and argue and occasionally fight, and they experience many difficulties. A poet said, "The formless is my father. The one with form is my mother." So whatever form the devotee desires, in that very form he will reveal himself. He is the one who satisfies all devotees. In the Puranas it's written that Hanuman was such a strong devotee that for the benefit of God, he assumed the form of Rama. Now we're going to discuss the definition of the form of Kali and the form of Krishna. Ramakrishna. You can't know the infinite. Placed before Vedanta, all forms fly away. The ultimate philosophical proposition of Vedanta is that Brahman, the supreme divinity, is Satya, truth, and that all the perceivable universe composed of names and forms is transient and therefore false. As long as I remain a devotee and this apprehension of I remains, this ego, the I consciousness, my identification as a devotee remains. At that time, I have the belief that God is a perceivable entity and that I can have a relationship with her. But if you allow worldly ideas to intrude, then this attitude that I am a devotee disappears. Then you believe that I am the actor instead of I am a devotee. What form does Kali have? When the sun is very far away, it appears to be small. When you go close to the sun, it looks so huge that you can't begin to conceive how enormous it is. In the same way, Kali's form is infinite, like the infinity of the sky, so then it is impossible to determine where her limits are. When you look at the water of the pond from afar, it appears to be green or blue or even black. If you go close and take a handful of water from the pond, it has no color whatsoever. If you look at the sky from afar, it appears blue. If you go close, it has no color at all. Hence the idea of Vedanta is that Brahman is beyond quality, beyond form. What is his intrinsic form? You cannot explain it in words. As long as you consider your I real, then the entire perceivable universe is also real. And the form of God as an individual in relationship to us is also real. Is it ever possible to know the infinite, supreme divinity? What is the necessity of knowing it? We have, with great difficulty, attained a human birth. I only need devotion to her lotus feet. If my thirst is quenched with one small pot of water, why should I measure how much water is in the pond? If I am intoxicated with one bottle of wine, why should I count how many bottles are in the store? Why should I concern myself about how big infinity is? The sixth discussion. The way you can have the darshan of God, the 7 levels and the knowledge of the supreme divinity. Ramakrishna. There are many different types of knowers of the supreme divinity described in the Vedas. The path of Gyan is very difficult. If the slightest bit of attachment and worldly desire remain, wisdom cannot be attained. In the Kali Yuga, the age of darkness, this is the more difficult path taken to attain the supreme wisdom. The Vedas have elucidated 7 levels of consciousness. The awareness resides in these 7 levels of consciousness. When awareness remains in the world of objects and relationships, it is residing in the 3 lower chakras, the anus, genitals, and navel. Then the contemplations don't move towards the upper chakras. All the mental faculties are devoted to desires and attachments. The 4th residence of awareness is in the chakra of the heart. There you get your first glimpse of true consciousness, where on all sides you find the vision of light. The individual at that time is mesmerized or astounded by the wonder of this eternal light, and he says, "What is this?" Then his mind no longer has any tendencies to move towards the lower levels of worldly attachments. The 5th residence of awareness is in the throat. When the contemplations rise to the throat, Vishuddha chakra, all the ignorance and all the foolishness are renounced in favor of listening to the eternal truth of God and words of wisdom. If anyone indulges in worldly gossip, such an individual leaves that place at once. The 6th residence is the Agnya chakra in the forehead. If awareness goes there, you have the eternal vision of the supreme divinity. Still, a little bit of I remains. Individuals who have the vision of that which is beyond form quickly become united with the divine. They want to touch that form of the formless and embrace it. They want to embrace the form of the formless, but they are unable to. It's just like when there is a light within a lantern. The light is seen within the lantern, and you think that you can touch it, but there's a glass surrounding it, which making it impossible to touch the flame. The 7th region is in the Sahasrara at the top of the head. If your contemplation goes there, then you go into Samadhi. All the knowers of the supreme divinity have the actual vision of divine communion with God. In that condition, the body does not remain for long. all of a sudden it will become limp and without energy. You won't be able to eat. If you put food into the mouth of such an individual, the food falls out. He won't be able to eat. If he stays in such a condition for 21 days, he will leave the body. This is the condition of a knower of supreme divinity. For you, I prescribe the path of devotion. It is very good and it is very simple. It is a straight path. In samadhi, you can't perform any activity. Once a friend asked me, "Great sir, Mahashaya, would you please teach me how to go into samadhi?" Everyone laughed. I replied, "If you go into samadhi, how will you fulfill all of your responsibilities? You cannot even perform puja, japa, and all of your various spiritual exercises." At first, in sadhana, everything is mixed up and confused. But as you go towards God, your burden of activities will be reduced. The time will come when even repeating the names and reciting the qualities of the deities will drop off. Ramakrishna to Shivanath, you give lectures. When you were going to many conferences and giving lots of lectures and speeches, you had great fame and you were widely known. Whenever you entered a place, everyone became silent. Just as soon as you arrived, all the talking in the audience ceased. Just looking at you, everyone felt delight. When the people said, "Shivanath has come," all worldly gossip and chatter in everyone's minds was immediately stopped. Let's stop here and see if there are any questions.
Swamiji, I have a question on page 73.
Yes.
Towards the end of the page, Sri Ramakrishna says, when you are searching for your own self, you search and search until you finally realize that you are nothing at all. Now, in our tradition, how does the puja and pa and homa, how is it related to searching for the self?
Oh, definitely. Puja, pat, homa, sangit, nrit, pravachan, and arpanam are the 7 aspects of Siddhanta Chara, which are the path of karma yoga. These are the karmas which take us into yoga. Chitta, vritti, nirod. Through the process of puja and pat, you learn to organize your life so that you have the time to spend with God. You learn to sit still. You learn to sit in an asana. You learn to perform pranayama. You learn to focus your awareness towards the meaning of the mantras. You learn to sit in front of the deity or the fire and picture it to the exclusion of all other concepts, so that you picture only that divinity within. And then you learn to create a union, a yoga between the perceiver and the object of perception. Here we are, God and me. Especially we perform the Agni Prajwalita, and we draw a circle of fire around us and the deity, and no one has the capacity to permeate the barriers of our circle of fire. Here we are, the deity and the worshipper of the deity, the devotee. In this way, we are purifying the ego, and we're peeling the layers of the onion until we come into that perfection of union. These are the processes, step by step. Siddhanta Chara is karma yoga. Karma yoga doesn't really mean sweeping the floor or chopping wood or washing dishes or carrying water. Karma yoga means the karma through which, the activities through which we achieve the perfected state of union. So if I say, okay, my job in the ashram is to split the wood, that's not karma yoga. Karma yoga is when I have no concept that there is a splitter or a split E.
Swamiji, question from Rolf from Mountain View.
Namaste, Rolf.
Namaste, my Swamiji. Can you please comment on tamasic devotion? On page 70, Sri Ramakrishna says, these devotees make demands of God. Just like a thief who steals all of the goods, they are like thieves who demand blessings from God. But a little later, on page 71, he says, when you give a spiritual turn to tamas, you can have the vision of God. Be forceful in your demands to God. These seem like conflicting statements.
They do seem that way, Rolf. However, if you go to a guru, or you go to a sadhu or a saint, or even go to God and say, God, won't you buy me a Mercedes-Benz? If you have selfish desire, if you come to God and say, please let me win the lottery, I'll give 10% to the temple. This is tamasic. You're making a tamasic demand on God. However, if you are the child of God and you say, Mom, give me devotion to your feet and don't let these feet go away from me. Don't let me go away from your feet. I demand that I be afforded a permanent space at your feet. Then this also is making a demand of God, but you've got a right because you're a child. You're not coming from selfishness, you're coming from the state of self-surrender. And if you come demanding the privilege to surrender yourself, then this is tamasic because I am there making a demand of my mom, except I have the authority because I'm her kid. And she's my mom. And we've got this relationship. So I'm going to cry and make noise and make your life miserable until you stop staring at me and pay attention to me. Just don't stand there. Pay attention to me. Give me the object of my desire. It's tamasic, and yet with a bhav of a child, with the innocence of a child. That demand has authority.
Swamiji, question from Kumari. If the Divine Mother has desires, does that imply any limitation on her, that she's somehow less than perfect?
Oh no. She can desire. Shakale tumari cha. Ichamoy. It's all your desire. And desire doesn't make her any less perfect because she's the mother of all. So it's all her desire. Yes, Gauri.
Page 80, Ramakrishna talks about the 7 levels of awareness.
Yes.
Consciousness. How do we move our levels from the 3 lower chakras up to the higher chakras? And the second part of the question is, do they go back and forth between the different levels, or once you reach like the Agnya chakra, or it stays there? Does it go back?
Yes, the Kundalini resides in the Muladhara, and it is constantly moving amongst the chakras. The greatest example we use is the wagon ruts in the dirt paths used by the villagers, the paths to their fields. The village farmers go out in their fields with their bullock carts, and they move their carts into the field, and on the way home they guide their carts to the path home, and the wheels enter the ruts. And then the farmers climb down in the back of the cart and go to sleep while the bullocks pull it home because it knows the path. Once you've had the experience of raising the Kundalini and consciously focusing your awareness in the various centers of energy, then it becomes easier and easier to make the journey. But ultimately, this body, this organism is going to have hunger, thirst, desire for sleep, a need for rest, and the Kundalini is going to return to the lower chakras. So the Kundalini is constantly in motion. Now, how do we raise the Kundalini? Karma Yoga, Siddhanta Chara, all the exercises of purification that we can employ in order to focus our awareness on divinity and cultivate new habits of thinking rather than only considering me and my personal desires. We'll think about divinity. Satsang, being with the Guru, being with God, performing all the exercises as we've been instructed. This is the system.
Swamiji, a question from Kumari. On page 54, Sri Ramakrishna says that one should enter the world only after becoming perfect in Vivek and Vairagya, discrimination between the real and unreal, and renunciation of the unreal. How does one attain these virtues if one is already in the world?
Well, Ramakrishna is saying to us, Kumari, that we should go extricate ourselves from worldliness and go to a solitude, a place of solitude and a place of inspiration. Go to the Devi Mandir and that kind of an environment and free yourself from attachment. And cultivate renunciation and look at the values that you could cultivate in such an environment and the mind that you cultivate in such an environment. And with that attitude, return to your worldly functions and perform your duty in the world, knowing fully well which is the reality and which is the Maya. So that's his suggestion. Whenever possible, extricate yourself from the worldliness and go to a clear, pure, inspiring environment and sit in solitude and contemplate divinity. And when you fill yourself with that spirit of renunciation and that give up your attachments to worldliness, then go back to the world and fulfill your worldly functions.
Question from Nanda from San Jose.
Namaste, Nandama.
Namaste Swamiji, the fact that Ramanuja had different ideas from his guru is interesting, and yet both of them were great people. Is it possible to accept one as a guru when the ideals are different? Please help me understand. Thank you.
Absolutely, Nanda, you can accept the inspiration of the example which is inspiring to you in your circumstances. And that will put you on the path to coming to your place of inspiration where you get renewed and rejuvenated and your energy is invigorated and you have the capacity to give up your attachments and fill yourself with inspiration, and now you're qualified to go back to worldliness and fulfill your worldly obligations. That will be your guru.
Swamiji, Nanda is also asking, would you advise me to adopt the attitude that I am not the doer? Will that attitude directly help my sadhana?
Absolutely not. It won't help your sadhana at all, and you won't be able to do it. You will keep saying, I am not the doer, now I'm going to do this. I'm not the doer, and now I'm going to do that. That is not the way. The way is, I am the doer of good things. Now, let me design a lifestyle filled with good things to do. Let me wake up in the morning and remember my guru, and sit before my altar and remember God, and cultivate the relationship between the devotee who is demonstrating her devotion to God and the deity who is giving blessings. And now take those blessings and go and do what you gotta do. And come home as quickly as you can and sit back in the relationship with divinity.
Swamiji, a question from Rolf. Namaste, my Swamiji, can worship take away karma, or do the fruits of karma always come no matter what?
Rolf, the fruits of karma will always come, but I'm busy in worship. I don't have time to pay attention to you. Now, someone knocks on the door, but there's no one at home. There's no one available to answer the door. So Ralph, the worship does take away the fruits of the karma, and yet the karma will keep coming. It will come, but there's no one home. I don't have time. I'm in Sankalpa. I'm reading the nectar of eternal bliss. How can I deal with old karma? I have a Sankalpa. I'm going to fulfill my Sankalpa. Old karma, you can have whatever time is left over after my Sankalpa is fulfilled.
Swamiji, I have a question on page 80.
Yes.
Sri Ramakrishna says, at first in sadhana everything is mixed up and confused. Is he referring to like the motives for our sadhana here?
Well, everything. The motives for our sadhana, the process of our sadhana, the efficacy of our sadhana. How many people are tempted to dig many shallow wells? He already gave that example. So everything is confused and mixed up. But if we have faith in the Guru, and we really have sincerity in our search, then we're going to stick to it and become accomplished in the sadhana. And then let that sadhana become our way of life until it's no longer an externally imposed discipline. It is the reality of my life. Sadhana is not something that my guru told me to do. It's the natural thing that I want to do every day. And it's no longer a sadhana. It's no longer a discipline. It's my life. Om Sam Saraswati Namaha. Namaste.